PvP and victory points. What's up, gentlemen? In today's video, we're going to be talking about real-time PvP, as well as FVF, or friend vs friend, and the rewards that you got from them. Back in original Battle Nations, there were a couple different forms of PvP in the game, including arenas and technically boss strikes, but we're mainly going to be talking about the baseline PvP features being real-time PvP and friend vs friend. Let's just start with going over the basics of how it worked, and we'll go from there. You could decide between fighting a friend or a random opponent. If you wanted to fight a random player, it would bring you to an empty battlefield where you put up to 7 units down, and then you would search for an opponent with units similar in value to yours. Each unit in Battle Nations has a specific PvP value that's determined by how powerful they are and what rank they are. For instance, let's take a shitty early game unit like the Ranger. At rank 6, the Ranger has 15 PvP value, so if you were to put 7 of them out, it would be equal to 105 PvP value. Taking another unit like the Light Chemical Tank, at R6, it would be 53 per unit, making it 371. Then with some of the best units in the game, like the legendary Sandworm, at R9, per unit it would be 104 PvP value. However, formations typically weren't comprised of all the same units, so it would have to add up all the values of your various units. Then it would try to search for an opponent with a similar range and value to make it somewhat fair, and if the search failed to find someone quickly, then it would cast a wider search. There were ways to trick the system though, where someone might put out 6 Arsonists which only have 12 PvP value, then some big chungo unit like the Ranged Sentinel Frag, which only has 55 at R6, so in total it would be 127, which could actually match you up against a lower level player, or a worser formation like the shithead putting out 7 Rangers. But going back to the PvP itself, when battling you have 20 seconds to attack, then afterwards it will swap to the opponent, and if you fail to attack in 20 seconds, it'll skip your turn. This would go until either all units on one side were killed or if a player retreated or left. This was somewhat shiesty, however, because if you knew you were going to lose, you could just be an absolute menace and just wait out the 20 seconds each turn, then attack at the last second, so it'd just take a million years. After the fight though, your units will gain SP from the enemies killed, and you will be allotted either 1 victory point for losing or 4 victory points for winning. In addition to this, any units lost during the battle wouldn't actually fully die, but they would be put on a 2-hour cooldown from being used, which is actually pretty nice. Let's talk about these victory points though. When you click on the PvP icon, it'll bring up a menu where you could see the amount of victory points you have, along with 4 daily milestone markers that you could redeem. The first was at 10 points, where it would give you a little bit of gold. At 20 points, you would get a larger amount of gold. At 30 points, you would receive some XP. Then finally, at 40 points, it would give you a dice roll, add gears, bars, and a very small chance of a solid amount of nanopods. This final reward changes with what level you are, along with the chances of receiving nanos getting slimmer and slimmer. At level 66 and above, it caps out at a 49% chance to get 8 to 12 gears, another 49% chance to get 8 to 12 bars, then a 2% chance to get 100 nanos, which is very shiesty, but free nanos are free nanos, man. Once you redeemed each of the 4 rewards, you would have to wait until the timer in the bottom right would reset, then you could go for them again. This was one of the couple ways to get free nanos back then, although it was very inconsistent. Now moving on, let's talk about friend vs friend. It was a bit different. You could basically choose to fight someone on your friends list, and you would have up to 90 seconds to set up a formation, and it pretty much acted the same as the random opponent version, but once it was over, it was a bit different. You don't gain any SP at all from the units killed, and all your units wouldn't fully die once again, but both parties actually received random amounts of gold, all tier 1 resources, and all tier 3 resources, including vials, which is actually pretty fucking insane. Afterwards, that friend would be placed on a 24-hour timer until you could get rewards from them again, meaning you could go through your whole friends list and farm resources, which is awesome. As you can probably imagine, this is something Madrona will definitely change, because if assisting was too much, then this thing would be a whole different ballgame. In all, PvP and FVF is something that a gigantic amount of the Battle Nations community is looking forward to again, and it will be interesting to see the changes or twists that Madrona decides to take with it. It could be making the rewards better or less grindy, but to balance it, your units will fully die, or the environments could change so it's not only land battles and maybe there's some naval versions, or even creating seasons and a ranked system, and maybe some units are banned, or you can only use specific types of units or a faction of units when fighting. It is unknown how they're going to handle this, and I'd love to hear your guys' opinions or ideas down below. But on that note, thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, consider dropping a like or a sub. I hope you guys are all having a great day, and I'll see y'all later.